Okay, back at it again. Ozonics Killerwinds podcast. I'm Cole Tanner.
I'm Nick Simon.
And we've got a special guest again.
Yep, same one.
Same one. So not the second in-studio guest.
Yep.
The first one a second time.
Yep.
Just to clarify.
Uncle Zip.
Zip's in the studio.
Yep. So if you guys want to know a little bit more about Zip, go back to the last epi.
The last episode. So we're going to be talking about something today I think that we've all ran into, and it's the idea about don't be that guy.
Yeah.
I think the moral of the story, I think for me about the don't be that guy, for me this really hits home because I think in this whole hunting space, not only just Ozonics, but all manufacturers and people that are on social media or people that are on TV, I really stand behind the idea that we all represent each other, right?
Right, yeah.
We all have a scope of influence, whether that's our friends, our family,
Yeah.
random people that you've never met before,
Yep.
your kids, you know?
Yeah.
So, and I think that we all represent each other. And I feel like that kind of drives me to try to do things the right way and ask myself, okay, I don't want to be that guy,
Right.
you know? But so I think we're just going to talk about today about how not to be that guy.
Yeah.
And examples of situations where there was people that were that guy.
Yep. A couple stories.
Yep.
Story time.
Yep. So that, yeah. So I think we just dive right in.
Sure.
I think one of the things that, unfortunately, that happens to all of us, and I feel like this is kind of the fuel to the fire that burns when it comes to people becoming that guy, is the fact that I think we all tend to forget that in most situations, we don't own the deer.
Right. Yeah.
We don't. I mean, I don't care if you own the land or if you lease the land or if you have permission for the land or if you're hunting public land. All of those situations, you own the land,
Yeah.
but you don't own the deer. The deer have the freedom to go wherever they want.
Yep.
If they're on your piece one day and they're on the neighbor the next day, it's not your deer.
Yeah.
Whether it's on owned land, permission land, leased land, public land, all the lands. The only one we could think of earlier where you might have the right to say that's my deer is if you build a high fence and you pay for the deer and you put it inside the fence and a guy jumps the fence and shoots it then,
Right.
maybe you could say that's my deer.
Yeah.
But I think in every other situation, it's not your deer.
Yeah.
Am I right or am I wrong?
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a lot of stuff that happens because we all inherently feel like at some point or another that that's my deer.
Yeah.
And it's just not the way it is.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's been times as a younger person that even I've had to remind myself of that. It's not my deer.
Yeah.
It's not your deer. It's everybody's.
Yeah.
You might own the land. You might have permission.
Yeah.
Whatever it might be, but you don't own the deer, man.
Yeah, exactly.
You
And
know?
I think that you're right 100%, but I think that there's a respect thing with it too.
Yep.
Like for example, like if you owned a piece and me and you went hunting together and you told me don't shoot this 2-year-old buck, I wouldn't shoot it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's still not my deer. It's not your deer either, but there's still a respect thing that goes along with it, I think.
No, I think you're hitting the nail on the head.
Yeah.
There's kind of like these unwritten man laws.
Exactly. Yep.
And I shouldn't say it's just men because there's lots of women that are awesome hunters and do a lot of and harvest a lot of deer too.
Yeah.
Or whatever animal it might be. But I feel like there is these unwritten laws. Yeah. And I think you're right. And I think what you and I talked about before this is I think the thing that you sprinkle on top of that is respect.
Right. Yeah.
We have to have respect for other people.
Right.
And be respectful to other people.
Yeah.
Be respectful of the wishes that they have or the things that they ask you to do or not to do.
Yeah.
And be respectful in how we interact with the other people when they do what we ask them to do or not to do, or if they're just doing something different than what you do.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's where I've really ran into those guys when they just start to be super disrespectful.
Yeah.
Well, it's working. You got to work with the people our farm isn't huge. We have a lot of neighbors.
Yeah.
Everybody hunts.
Yep.
So, and most of them are of the idea that they want the herd to be healthy and they want big bucks around.
Yep.
A lot of years we'll have one or two that are that are real nice shooter bucks, and odds are somebody's gonna
Yeah.
kill those deer.
Mm-hmm.
So jealousy gets involved. Doing, not working. If you're going to work together, then you all have to work together and roll the thing together. Otherwise, pretty quick, there's hard feelings and people are getting, pretty quick, you're not buddies anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. And that's where I keep coming back to. I feel like the resounding theme for me is that I try to think about and have the perspective of the hunting community, the bow hunting community, the just hunting community in general as a big group. And I feel like we do a lot better together, all trying to push the ball up the hill and trying to figure out whatever we can do to find some sort of common ground.
Yeah.
Because I think divided we fall.
Yeah.
For sure.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yep,
For every force, there's an equal and opposite force.
Yeah.
And the anti-hunting organizations are out there.
Yeah.
And it's already hard enough to defend ourselves when we're all together, let alone when we're all just trying to bicker and get mad at each other.
Well, and we're all there for the same reason.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, most love being out in the woods, and that shooting a deer is a bonus.
Yeah.
And shooting a giant is a bonus on top of that.
Exactly.
But I mean, you gotta, like you said, you respect somebody else's what they're. If you're not there to shoot a giant buck, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
But don't sit there and talk to me all week long about this giant's been moving back and forth, but he's going to be huge next year. Let's let that one walk.
Yeah.
And then I see it hanging in your shop 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a real tricky thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a super tricky thing.
Yeah. Definitely.
And I think that's where it comes back to me. It's all about just trying to be respectful.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me, one story I had a couple years ago, the farm that we hunt on, the owner, he'll let pretty much anybody on there. And that's the only spot that me and my dad have to hunt. And a kid from Minnesota came over, and I got trail cam pictures of him messing around with my trail camera. I'm like, what is going on? I had no idea. I didn't know that he had gotten permission, so I drove over there, and I'm like, hey, what's up? I see you're kind of messing with my trail camera. I see you got tree stands. Like, what's going on? And right away, he's like, oh, I got permission to come hunting. I'm like, all right, that's fine. I'm like, me and my dad have hunted here for a long time. We got our stand set up, showed them where they were. I said, obviously, you guys can go wherever you want.
Mm-hmm.
And like Ben said, too, like I was a little bit upset. It's kind of nice having your own spot that,
Yeah.
that you're just there. And it just adds a little bit of jealousy. Now you're thinking, oh, what if he shoots the big buck, So I was a little bit upset about it. But I was just hoping that, he would respect that what we're doing and whatnot. And kind of had a little bit bad start with them screwing with my trail camera and whatnot, but whatever. So whatever, we hunt a couple days or whatever, and then he sends me this really long text about how me and my dad are hunting wrong and we got to change all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't care. Like, we've been doing this for years. It works for us. We've shot some deer up here, made a ton of great memories. That's the only thing that matters to me. And I kind of, I don't know, maybe I was kind of being a jerk back to him a little bit because I was really upset with it. It made me mad. It was super disrespectful how he was treating me when he had only been there for 2 days and we had been there for however long,
Right.
multiple years. And it's like there's so many different ways that he could have went about that.
Yep.
Just don't say anything and understand, okay, these guys have been here for a while. They got what they're doing, kind of dialed in with what works for them. That's fine. And if he doesn't like that, then don't hunt there.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to change. I'm sorry. I mean, we've been there for very long. We already got our stand set. I don't want to change for a guy that I've known for 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just so many different, like I said before, there's so many different ways he could have went about it,
Well, I feel like it's all about the pitch,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
Yeah.
You can throw a hard fastball or you can just lob one in there.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, that's where, when we're having this whole conversation, that's where I have to really keep myself in check. It's not for me about the fact that I really, like I said earlier, I believe in the fact that nobody really owns the deer.
Yeah.
I really just have to, I have to keep that in mind. But where I struggle is what you just described there. I'm the type of person that I like to hunt because it's such a personal thing for me. It's a passion thing for me.
Yeah.
It's kind of how I kind of center myself back and feel like I become very present when I'm out there.
Yeah.
As weird as that may sound, you know what I mean?
No,
I'm not really
100%.
thinking about what's gone on that day or what I've got going on. I'm right there.
Yeah.
I really like that. So that becomes a very personal thing for me.
Yeah.
And so where I have a struggle is kind of what you described, where it's like, I don't want other people out there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I was the guy that got out there when there was other people out there too, but I don't want the next guy to come.
Yeah.
And so I have to keep myself in check because I'm not leasing it.
Yeah.
I'm getting permission or
Right.
I'm hunting a public land spot.
Yep, exactly.
And so it's like I have to keep that in mind because it's easy to fall into that. It's a very slippery slope.
Yeah.
But if you do that and you're the guy that sees that somebody's out there,
Yeah.
and then you just, why not work with them? Why not talk to them about where their stuff is, and then say, well, all right, well, I'm gonna be on this side of the farm. I mean, you're not talking about a 2,000 acre farm.
No, yeah,
It's
exactly.
a couple hundred acres.
Right.
And if I pulled in there and the guy said, yeah, go ahead and hunt, and I walked up there and saw the tree stands and the stuff that you guys got, I would never. I've had that happen where I've gotten permission to hunt properties, and it would have been awesome properties. But once I walked them, I'm like,
Yes.
not a chance in hell I'm going to
Yeah.
hunt this farm. There's people. I'm going to be boogering somebody up every single time I come in here.
Yeah, no matter what, you'll be stepping on somebody's toes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So don't be that guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
The moral of the story, I feel like we're
Right.
going to say that
Yeah.
100 times. Like,
Yeah.
don't be that guy.
Yeah.
I mean, heck, look at that. Well, we had this spring. I've had a spot that I had permission for. I've had a permission for it for a few years. And same thing. When I first got permission, I walked it.
Yeah.
And of course, you look at it, you're like, okay, I think I want to check here, check here, check here. Everywhere I went, tree stand, tree stand, tree stand, tree stand. I was like, okay, there is. I went back to the guy's house. I'm like, you got that other people out here? Oh, yeah, I got 3 or 4 other guys. I'm like, oh, okay, well,
Yeah.
is there going to be room for me? I don't want to step on anybody's says, oh, no, they just gun hunt or whatever. I'm like, okay. But in my head, I'm like, I don't want to hunt on that north end because there's a lot of tree stands in there.
Right.
Yeah.
So then I go to the other south end of it. No tree stands.
Yeah.
I walk this whole thing. I'm like, okay, well, I guess this is where I'll try to go.
Yeah.
So I turkey hunted a lot. And then just happens chance, we go out there this late spring, early summer, and said, hey, I've seen lots of stands on the north end. I've been turkeying this for a long time, but I think let's try deer hunting it. Stop and said, hey, we're going to be out here. You know what I mean? Like, buddy Nick's going to be out here with me. Yeah, sounds great. So we go out there, find a great spot to set a tree stand on a Sunday afternoon, drive our truck down the edge of this corn tree line type deal.
Yeah.
Park the truck, loading everything out. All of a sudden we look back, here comes a truck just ripping down.
Yeah.
Same place we did. I mean, ripping.
Yeah.
Pulls up, kind of slams on his brakes, rolls down his window. I walk up, bush light in one hand, hand on the shifter and a fist in the other, right? So instantly I'm like, okay, this is going to go good. First thing he says, can't say the explicit parts of it, but what are you doing out here? Who the heck are you? If you can put a different letter on the H there.
Yeah.
I'm like, and instantly I felt like he's being disrespectful. So it's hard for me to just show him a lot of respect back. I'm like, well, who are you? I'm like,
Yeah.
he's like, well, do you have permission to be out here? I'm like, yes, I do have permission. He's right up the road there. His house is right there. Well, I was just over there. Well, he doesn't know who you are. I'm like, yeah, he does. We just stopped a couple days ago. I've hunted here for years. Well, I've been hunting here for 20 years. I'm like, man, bro, like, let's just de-escalate the situation.
Yeah.
It's June, man.
Yeah.
Like, and he's like, well, I hunt on the north end. I'm like, I assumed you did. I went in there and I saw a bunch of stands. That's why I'm on this side. I didn't see any stands over here. I didn't feel like I was stepping on anybody's toes. He was just mad.
Yeah.
And it's just like, don't be that guy.
Well,
why can't we just all work together?
Yeah.
It takes away it takes a lot away from hunting when you're going out to get in a tree stand somewhere and you're thinking more about who you're screwing up or who's screwing you up
Yes.
than what you are actually out there to try and do.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, not only that, but then when you run into a nice guy, perfect example, my buddy Chris Davidson. I remember when I first met him, man, we should try to hunt together. So I was like, man, if I had a nickel for every rude person I've met along the way, and then you inherently kind of get a little calloused about it.
Yeah.
And you don't want to meet guys because then it didn't work out.
Yeah.
He's all a little PTSD going on, you know what I mean? You just kind of get frustrated.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you meet about like my buddy Chris, that's a heck of a nice guy,
Yeah.
bend over backwards for you, and you have to like take steps. You're like, man, this is how it's supposed to be.
Right.
He would let me hunt any of his spots. Let's work together. Let's figure this out.
Yeah.
And that's how you want to be.
Yeah. Definitely. Yep.
And it does. It sucks to be thinking about the next guy and, oh, Mike, is this guy getting mad at me? And then all of a sudden, this thing that you're so passionate and you have so much fun with isn't fun at all.
Right.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, it ruins it when crawl up in a tree stand and look across the fence, and there's a dude climbing up into his tree stand, and he's 40 yards from you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now what? You move,
Yeah.
and you screw everything. I mean, it kind of
Yeah.
wrecks the day. But
Yeah. And that's the thing. There's another example. Don't be that guy. I mean, look at public land.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the spots that I've showed you,
Yeah.
gone out there and in Iowa, you have to set them 7 days before and then you do it. And it is every person's right to put their stand wherever they want.
Yeah.
But you can't tell me that they didn't see my stand
Right.
when they put theirs 20 yards down the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
and
like,
what are they? How are they going
is
to
that
check it?
gonna
Are they
work?
going to walk in, see that you're there, and then hunt a different stand? Well, thanks. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I went to Iowa State, graduated from there, and I hunted a lot of spots along the Des Moines River there. And I mostly hunted out of a climber, but I had a couple stands that I left out that I just left out during season. And I had 2 different times where I walked out there and had guys in my stands.
oh, I believe it.
And in the state of Iowa, you can do that,
Yeah.
But I walked up, I was like, hey man, that's my stand, and both guys were like, cool, but they're like, oh, okay. And
Well,
then
that's kind of ballsy, though, ain't it?
oh yeah.
I mean,
Well, and then
there's a stand. I'm going to crawl up, and there's no way that guy will be here today.
Yeah.
I'm gonna,
well, dude, and it's funny.
November 2nd.
Yeah.
There's so many things like that I've had to do differently because of bad situations. When I hunt, when I put things on public land, a lot of times what I do is I have like any type of like an oil can, like the plastic oil quart containers or bigger gallon containers. Take a nice knife, X-Acto knife, cut out a section of it, put a hole in it. I put my name, Cole Tanner, my address, cell phone, please call. And I write that on there and I put it on a zip tie. I put it on my stand. I've had to get to the point now where if I put stuff on public land, I chain it in.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times, dude, as a younger person, I would go out and I'd have tree stands thrown on the ground. I'd have tree stands stolen.
Yeah.
So I would go and I would buy a chain from Fleet Farm, put it in like acid to get the chrome off of it. And then I would and I would try to put the lock where a guy couldn't reach it easy. Guy's probably not going to carry bolt cutters out there.
I had a guy that just took the bottom 2/3 of my tree pegs. Got to stand there. You stand on the ground, you can't even.
Yeah. There's nothing you can do.
No.
Yeah. Don't be that guy. Dude, another great example. I don't get this much anymore. I used to be this big thing is have my SD cards taken out of my trail cameras. You go, I
Well,
go out
the
there.
poor guy got busted there. Now he don't want to let you figure out who he is.
Yeah. I go out there and my cards would be gone. I'm like, really? Come on.
Right.
Like you take the cards.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Like, don't be that guy.
There's millions of those guys.
Yeah.
Of that guy.
Yep. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. It's just funny. I just think it just comes down to we just need to be respectful and we need to just be how we communicate with each other. I feel like, I don't know, maybe this seems like a funny thing to talk about, but it was just funny that day that happened. I remember being like, well, I know what we're going to do a podcast about.
Yeah. Exactly.
Don't be that guy.
Yep. Yep.
Well, another one of those guys is I got a farm that I don't own. I hunt. I got permission to hunt on it. Been hunting there for 15 years. The neighboring property in recent years, a friend of mine's, I believe it's his nephew, married into that family. They hunt. Their normal farm is 20 miles from me, but now they got this permission to hunt this one. Mm-hmm. They manage deer. They shoot big bucks every year on their property at home. Come rifle season, I'm sitting in my tree stand one evening, and all of a sudden, all hell is breaking loose, and it's shot after shot after shot. Finally, the end of the day rolls around. I get in the truck. I'm heading home, and I get a text from a guy that says, "Hey, can we cross your property to get a deer that we shot?" And I said, "Well, it's not my property." So I sent him a message back to send it to get a hold of the homeowner.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not doing I'm not doing the legwork for you. You're a big boy.
Yeah.
So what they wind up doing, they don't call the property owner. They just barreled through all the stuff that I can hunt, found the deer dead. There was a little scrub buck, 5-pointer, and I don't even know how many deer they shot off the property. But it's a numbers game when you're not around home. When you don't care about what you're doing. I mean, for 15, 20 years I've been hunting that ground. We don't shoot anything small. We we shoot some does and stuff, but why would you do that?
Yeah.
Why would you change your entire tactic and not care at all? I mean, we're all there for pretty similar reason, and you don't care if you destroy my hunt as long as the stuff you got at home stays
untouched.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, that hits a chord for me in the fact of has been a few years for me since I've had this happen to me, but I feel like there's always this tension between residents and non-residents.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because as a resident, I can hunt the whole season. I don't feel the pressure of this 5-7 day window of vacation that I have to come to Iowa to try to shoot a deer on my $600+ deer tag.
Yeah.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
And I think there's a mentality, and write it in the comments. Maybe we're going to get blown up here. Probably not, but whatever. I'm going to say it anyway. There's this connotation at non-residents that they're going to do what they want to do because they've only got a few days and they don't care what they blow up because they're not worried about next week or next month. They're worried about right now.
Yeah, exactly.
And, I feel like there's got to be a better way. Like example for me of that is when I hunt public land. I have that story, hunt a piece of public, and I hadn't hunted in a few years, and I'm like, I'm going to go back there. I slept in the parking lot the night before, so I didn't have to drive and fall asleep in the morning. Slept there, got up, was getting my stuff on. Other car pulls in the parking lot. Look on his face. The guy's just like, God. He's all disappointed. I was like, hey, man. He's like, hey. I was like, hey, it's public land. I know. He's like, I know. I was like, well, there's plenty of ground. I'm like, where are you going to go? What are you thinking? I was like, I was thinking of going over here. And he was like, right. I was like, perfect, because I want to go back there. I was like, hey, there you go. I'm like, that's fine. But it's just like that little bit of just let's talk
tension.
for 5 seconds.
That's all you got to do.
Let's just talk.
Yeah.
And maybe we don't agree. And that's okay too.
Yeah.
But let's just be respectful.
Yeah.
Right.
I think there's a lot of that happens between residents and non-residents.
Yeah.
It's happened to me in the past where you get guys who are like, well, I don't really care, man. Like, this is the only chance I've got. I hear you, dude. I get it. But you're going to blow me up too,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's kind of funny. I have a very similar story that Ben has. May or may not be the same guy. But, so the one farm that I hunt religiously, it's like the only farm I hunt. Same thing, family relation. They have relation to the farm owner or whatever. Well, all of a sudden I come figure out that somebody's pushing out the property doing deer drives. Like, well, that's kind of odd. I don't know who would do that. I mean, it just seems kind of weird to me that I wouldn't at least get a text if it's somebody that I know and that I'm very good friends with. That would be like, hey, we're doing a drive. You should just come sit in on the drive at least. Never got a text, never got anything, and come to figure out it was a very good friend of ours. Really, I mean,
well,
really
and it's the same story. It's
Same thing.
They wouldn't be caught dead driving their property.
Yeah, never.
But they're gonna go knock all you got like 3 days left in the season.
Yeah, it was
and
literally 3 days.
They know that we're doing our thing over at the farm or whatever, and then they just go push it when you're not there.
Yeah.
And no anyone going to tell you.
Yeah, and they know for sure that that's the only spot that I hunt.
Yes.
Well, how fun would that have been for you to go sit that stand that night? Whether they just pushed every deer
Oh,
out
I was going hunting, and I'm like, well, I'm not going because they just walked through every single inch of it.
Yeah.
And it's just a simple fact of saying, that's a 5-second conversation. Give me a call and say, hey, we got permission to push this. Are you okay with it? Are you planning on hunting there? We know that this is your only spot that
Well,
you
if
can hunt.
nothing else, they should let you know that it's going to happen, and if you want to sit in on it,
Exactly.
be part of it. It's your managed spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Don't be that guy.
Yeah. Do not be that guy.
It's a great title. It's a great title.
I feel like we're on. Have you ever seen that Monday Night Football when they're like, "You got mossed," like we're like, don't be that guy.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, you want to hear a funny story about a deer drive like that? This one will make you cry. I was guiding in. I've never told you a story. I was guiding in Colorado at the time, and I would come home right at the end of November, right before the mule deer rut would really kick in the first part of December. So I would come home right about Thanksgiving, for Thanksgiving, and then be home for just a little bit, and then I go back. So I had trail cams out at the time, and I hadn't checked them for a bit, but I had this one spot that was a permission piece that I had, butted up against a bunch of public land. I go in there one day, this well before cell cams. I go, I check the cam, pull the card. At that time, I didn't have a cell phone way to look at it. I had to have a little digital camera. So I put it in the digital camera. I'm flipping through it as I'm sitting in my tree stand, and I get this mega giant. And it's a mega giant. I'm like, oh my goodness. And it was biggest deer I'd ever seen on a trail camera. At the time, I was like, holy cow. I'm like, this is a big deer, And I thought it was probably in like the 180s. It's like, geez, this is like maybe high 180s. Like, this is a big deer. So I had a little bit of time, and I was single. So I sat every day from like a couple days before Thanksgiving until shotgun season. So it was like a week and a half, every day, all day. I just sat there. Like, there was a big thicket. I'm like, man, he's got to be in there. He's got to be in there. It was like, he's got to be in there.
Yeah.
And I don't do gun seasons in Iowa because I just don't. And I don't like it. I just don't. I'm just a bow hunter.
Yeah.
My brother-in-law calls me. He's like, hey, are you sitting down? I'm like, yeah, why? He's like, well, remember that buck? I'm like, yeah. Well, they got him. Okay, well, how'd they get him? Well, state of Iowa, you can't trespass, right?
Yeah.
But you could be blood trailing a deer, supposedly. So they pushed all the public, set their guns against the fence, walked through the thicket, bumped him out of the thicket, pushed him across the field, across the gravel road in this little grassy little island of a ditch, which I drive by even now. It feels like it looks like a graveyard to me. And I just imagine this buck being like, man, this is not how I wanted to die.
Yeah.
And that's where he died. And he went 193 and 7/8.
Jeez.
And that's why I have to remind myself, it's not my deer.
Yeah, exactly.
But it was just one of those things. I was like, God, guys,
yeah.
like, don't be that guy.
Yeah.
Like, was that like, technically, were they breaking any laws? I don't know. I don't know if they were actually blood trailing deer.
No, that's
Seemed very convenient that they left their gun at the fence, which was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But they walked through it and they bumped the deer out of there, and they didn't know he was there, and there he was. Well, here come find out, a couple neighbors down the way had been seeing that buck during the summer. It just so happened that that's where he ended up.
Yeah.
I'd never gotten a single picture of him that one time. I was a video, actually. I had a video. It was a video. I'll show you the video. It's a big deer.
Yeah.
We could even probably put it up there because what difference does it make now? That was a long time ago. That guy's got I think I also heard he never even got it mounted. He just sat on his floor in his garage.
Nice.
Yeah, which that kind of sucks.
Yeah.
So worth it.
Yep, don't be that guy.
Right.
I'll tell you what, the other one to talk about, we've been discussing here a lot about hunters interacting with hunters. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of that goes on. And unfortunately, we all inherently just need to be more respectful.
Yeah.
But the other thing that I would say is, and what I talked about at the beginning is we all one represents them all. It's hunters interacting with non-hunters.
Yeah.
Whether that's people that are anti-hunters or, more importantly, the landowners.
The guy that owns the land.
Yeah, the landowners that give us permission and the right to go out there to hunt on their land. Number one thing I would say, and I think you would agree with this, is that what I've seen is treat the land like you would want them to treat your own land.
Yeah.
Right.
If you don't want them to do that to your land or your yard, don't be doing it to them.
Yeah.
I haven't experienced what I think you're going to talk about is like seeing trash out there.
Yeah.
But I know that I try to really ask the landowner, what are your expectations? What are your little bugaboos? Man, I don't like ripped up fields. When the field's wet, don't drive out there. No problem. If it's a sprinkle, I don't drive on it for like a week.
Yeah.
I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
I don't want to give him any reason to not let me go out there. Just be respectful to the land and to the things that guy, man or woman, asks you to do.
Yeah.
Well, and even if they don't have high expectations, why not pick up your garbage and not rip up his field roads and not tear up their yards and everything else trying to get in and out of there?
Without
Yes.
a doubt.
Just the fact of shooting a deer on their property and then doing your best to be I don't know how you would say it, but you don't want to make it a production when you're doing all of that stuff. If they don't hunt, typically they don't care to see it. They don't,
Right.
and if you're dragging 30 guys in there in the middle of the night to go blood trail a deer, and,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a million ways to be disrespectful to a guy that owns land when you might not even think you're being that disrespectful. It's not just leaving your garbage lay out there.
Yeah.
Man, it's even a phone call goes a long way.
Right.
I mean, heck, what are we all doing when we're bow hunting? I know I'm cutting lanes.
Yeah.
Just be
Right.
respectful about how you cut your lanes.
Yeah.
There's a difference between cutting a lane and cutting trees down.
Knocking down
We're
a
not lumberjacks.
oak tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I don't think that there's like a written rule, but if it's like bigger than your arm, probably just
Right.
leave it. You know,
Yeah.
you're not like trying to like do deforestation out here
Yeah.
to get a lane cut in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
You know, like, or if you're going to cut lanes, like stack your brush up.
Yeah.
Or ask the guy where he would want his brush stacked. I've been on places where guys like, do you mind if I cut lanes? Yeah, you know, I don't mind if you cut lanes, but I really appreciate if you'd take the brush out. I've got a burn pile right here, right by the yard.
Sure.
Just put it in there. So I'll cut it up small enough that I can load it in the back of my truck. Yes, it takes me a little bit longer, but I'm just trying to be respectful to those things that guy, man or woman, wants me to do or not do.
Yeah.
The last thing you want is a guy calling you, be like, "Hey, yeah, so we need to talk," you know, and,
Yeah.
and then you're on the wrong side of the coin.
Yeah.
And you're probably done anyway if you get to that level.
Yes,
Yeah. Definitely.
yes. Well, I'll tell you, that brings to mind the story that I'll never forget. I was living in Waverly, Iowa. Okay, I was going to community college at Hawkeye Community College down in Cedar Falls, and I just moved to Waverly, and it was in the summer. So of course, being how I am, I'm like, here we go. Got to try to get some deer permission. So I'm just ripping around, I'm rallying around, knocking on doors, knock, 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 knock. And if you had good sound effects, we could get a knock sound right there. Anyway, so I knock on this guy's door. Hey, how you doing? Give him my spiel, and right away he's like, "I'll never let anybody else bow hunt out here ever again." I was like, "Oh," and I knew, I was like, "Oh, I'm in for it." You know, he's gonna rip me a new one. I was like, "All right, well, I'm sorry to hear that." And he goes, "Well, you want to know what happened?" And I was like, "Pretty sure you're gonna tell me." You know, and I was like, "Yeah, what happened?" He goes, "I had a guy shoot one of my cows."
Oh.
I said, "What?" He's like, "Oh yeah. He shot one of my cows." Bow hunter. You a bow hunter? And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a bow hunter." He goes, "Oh yeah, he shot one of my cows." He goes, "I've got plenty of ground here." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I can see you got plenty of ground." That time was before Onyx maps. I just had a plat book. I'm like, "Oh yeah, I could see it." And there was like a river back behind his place. I'm like, "Yeah, I see you got plenty of ground." He's like, "Yeah, oh yeah." So first he shot my cow, which how do you shoot a cow? Which is funny. This is actually kind of a whole thing. I was like, I don't know actually how you shoot a cow. But it was funny because he goes, "First shot my cow." I'm like, "Yeah." Then he decided to try to cover it up. So then he brought his buddies out middle of the night and tried to like cut up the cow and get rid of it. He's like I don't count my cows.
Right.
Like I don't know
He
how
knows
many,
how many cows he's got.
how many cows I have.
Yeah.
And he goes, so then I try to figure out, well, did he shoot the cow because he wanted some new ribeyes? You know what I mean? Like, you know, or did he shoot the cow like, oh crap, I thought it was a deer, shot a cow, and then I tried to cover it up. And he goes, all of it was bad. And he
Right.
goes, I'll never let another guy out here. And I'll never forget. I was like, dude, listen, I didn't call him dude, but I was like, hey, I'm really sorry that happened. And I go, that's not how all of us are. You know, I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not even we're past the idea of you even thinking about letting me out here, but let me just say, that's not what everybody does. And I'm sorry that happened, but one represents them all. I'm sorry that happened.
Yeah.
Have a good day. You know, like, and I just,
And then he let you hunt.
no, yeah, that was that. And he was cool. He's like, oh yeah, no, and he's like, I really appreciate you stopping. I'll tell you what, that's another one. Don't be that guy. This is a big one. How many times how many times have I stopped and knocked on somebody's door and asked for permission and people go, listen, respectfully, no, but I really appreciate you stopping.
Instead of just going on the land. And
Most people never stop.
Yeah.
Don't be that guy.
Yeah.
Just stop.
Yeah.
well, that
call.
goes back to even if you gain that permission one time. We were talking about earlier about how you stop every year.
Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
I know a guy that got permission on a chunk of ground 30 years ago. He's been hunting ever since, and their property owner doesn't even know he's out there hunting anymore.
Oh, geez.
He never stopped since. He figured he got it once, and that's good for a lifetime. So
Right.
I mean, you just don't know. I mean, there's other reasons to want to know. I mean, you don't want to get shot.
Yeah.
You don't want to be boogering up somebody else's property.
Yep.
or if somebody new gets permission there.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I feel like this could go on for hours.
Oh, yeah. I think there's probably not anybody that hunts that doesn't have 20 stories of when they ran into that guy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Definitely.
Yep. Yeah, that's yeah. Well, and I think this also comes back to a podcast we did earlier about the different stages of hunting.
Yeah.
You know, we taught, and I'll rally through them really fast. There's the shooter stage. You just want to get one. There's the limit out stage. You want to shoot a pile of them. The trophy stage, it's all about how big it is. There's the method stage, less about what it is and about how you're doing it. And then the sportsman stage, where it gets to be about the camaraderie and getting family, friends involved. I think that we all inherently get so stuck in the stage that we're in, and we can't look past our feet and try to be open-minded about where other people are at.
Yeah.
I feel a lot of people are stuck in this sportsman stage, and that's fine. But there's young kids, or there's young men, or older men or older men and women. I'm not just saying that. So I don't want to feel like I'm the guy that's like only men hunt, because I've got 3 girls, and I want them to go as much as I possibly can get them out there. That we get so stuck in that we look down on, or we get mad about the people that are in the shooter stage or the limit out stage because we're in this sportsman stage, or we're in the trophy stage. Mm-hmm. I feel like we all need to be more open-minded and respectful of where we are at in that. I feel like there's a lot of that animosity and frustration that happens kind of rubbing up against each other because we all get so stuck in which one we're at.
Yeah, definitely.
I feel like that shed a lot of light on, for me, about where I was at, or why I do what I do.
Yep.
You know?
Without a doubt.
So, yeah, that's a big one too.
Well, and but respecting other people should be through every one of those stages. It should never go out the window at any point.
Yeah, without
and
a doubt.
it does. You can, like you guys were talking about, the guy that says, yeah, I shot, it was only 140 inches. I thought, whatever. Yeah. And then another guy dogging him for, I got a guy that I work with that last year shot just a giant. It was just a straight 8-pointer, but it was nobody's ever scored it. It was 100. I would guess it to be pushing 160, 165. But for an 8-pointer, that's a stud. But so he sent me the picture of it, and I'm like, I do a little buckboard around home, and I always measure all the deer on it.
Yeah.
I said, bring it down. Let's score that thing. He's like, I don't care what that scores. I don't. I mean, he's like, it was the experience and the story that I'm there for, not the score of a buck. So, and it almost made me feel stupid because I'm like, here I am. I love scoring deer. I think it's fun as heck. But that's his thing. And so we all have those things. But
But I'll tell you what, and I'm going to kind of put myself on blast on this one, right? I think what you just said is so true about just being respectful about what people are into. Sometimes I get really, I don't know what the right thing, you can correct me because I feel like you might have a word that comes to mind. I get kind of pissed off. I get frustrated by some of the stuff that I see on social media or some of the people and the way that they're doing things, or I get frustrated about what I think their what their driving force is for what they're doing.
Yeah.
But inherently, that's not my place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I just need to worry about myself.
Right.
I get what I think always comes back to is I get frustrated is I feel like they represent all of us.
Yeah.
And I get frustrated that maybe they're representing us the wrong way. But who am I the person to be? Am I the judgment person here in this? No, I'm not.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
I feel like I have to try to be more open-minded to if the guy that doesn't care about what it scores, or the guy that does care about what it scores, or the guy that shoots one that scores really good and then wants everybody and their mother to know about it. You know what I mean?
Well, who doesn't want that if you shoot one that scores really good?
Yeah. But that's the funny thing is, like, I know some guys that shoot big deer, and the only people that know is if they're lucky enough to go and shop and see him up on his wall, skull plated, with dust all over him.
Right. Yeah.
They couldn't tell you what they taped out at.
Well, I used to hunt with this is kind of getting off topic, but we used to go out to South Dakota and hunt with the native guy on the reservation, and he had racks upon rack in a skunky old shed just nailed I mean, half fur on the foreheads and everything else, just nailed to a
smelly,
wall. Yeah. And I mean, there was some giants in there, and he could care less. He just
isn't
went
that
out
something?
after the meat.
Yeah, and that's something. Yeah, I think that's a really good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just so much of that stuff, but I think the thing I keep coming back to is it just comes about being respectful.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, just being respectful. I feel like if we all just had a little bit more respect in any situation, whether it's with fellow hunters, whether it's with landowners, whether it's even with anti-hunters, I'll never forget that. And this was years ago. We were in Dallas, Fort Worth, and I don't know Michael Waddell, right? I've met him in passing. You know what I mean? Like, oh, hey, how you doing? Like, that's it. I'll never forget. We were at that Dallas Fort Worth show, and there was anti-hunters standing out front, like with like picket signs and like yelling and like throwing a fit. And he went out there to try to talk to him. I'll never forget that. I was just like, that is so awesome. They wouldn't even talk to him.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But it was like he was like extending the olive branch, right? He was trying to be, and I was like, that is so awesome, you know? And it's like, I've said this numerous times, like, man, if I had a chance to talk to him, I would say, hey, dude, I remember that day. I was there at that show.
Yeah.
It was a deer and turkey extravaganza or something. I don't even remember.
Yeah.
It was just really cool. And whether it's hunters or property owners or anti-hunters, I feel like we just need to all be respectful because we all have a perspective and we all have a right to have it.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Definitely.
What examples you got, Benny?
Yeah, Benny. What
Yeah,
about
Benny.
you back there?
Hit us with one.
Of what? Of
That guy.
Don't be that guy.
what examples?
Yeah, just besides just being disrespectful to
Yeah,
the
a
hunter.
topic.
Remember the guy at Morrow's when they came and walked in front, or like he saw me in the stand, and walked down the corner and just cut us off.
Yes, that was great. Rifle season. He's sitting in a tree stand in a fence line. Fence line ties the woods that we're in to the woods that this guy's in. There's a 300-acre cornfield in the middle of it. We got a tree stand and a stand that's probably, 150 yards from the fence? 100 yards? 120? I don't know. So there's no way that this guy can't see him in this tree stand. And the guy has hunted there on the neighboring property as long as I've hunted this one. So and we have each other's numbers and we talk every year a little bit. But he saw him in the tree stand, so he just walks down the fence line and sits right in the corner between where they would. Every deer that would come out was going to have to walk right by him in order to get to Benny. So I mean, it was like, all right, well, what are he going to do for the next 2.5 hours now? You got 2.5 hours till dark, and dude just comes and stands, just completely cutting him off.
Yeah.
So there's one of those that guy stories.
Oh man. Yeah, there's a spot that I hunted years ago. I still hunt it now, and there's one person that hunts the property next to it, and I'm sitting out there, and it's late October, and I was shooting my recurve at the time, and I'm sitting there, and I'm just sitting in the tree stand, and I look, and I'm like, whoa, and I see movement, and here comes this guy walking through the woods, all camoed up, walking through the woods, and he's sneaking along, he's looking around, doesn't have a bow in his hand, nothing. He's just walking out there. And I recognized him. It was the guy that had permission on the spot beside. Well, this is public land, right? So he could be out there, but it's late October and it's 25, 30 minutes before dark. I mean, it's just at sunset. So I was like, man, dude, you're walking out in camo in late October down a deer trail. Like, geez, that seems like a bad idea. Like, how'd you get shot? Well, hard telling, you know? You know what I mean? So, dude, the guy walks like right up to me, right up. And I'm sitting in my hang-on tree stand, and I'm sitting there, and he walks, and he's like 40, 50 yards, then he's like 30, then he's at like 15 yards. So finally, I just did a little, you know? And it was like, and he froze. And I'm just like, I wave like this, you know? He looks up at me. And I just was like, well, hey, come over here. You just ruined it for me. So, might as well just talk. Like, what are you doing? You know, and I thought at first maybe he shot a deer because he was kind of looking around, but he's looking up and it just didn't make all total sense. So I kind of waved him over. Well, dude, he kind of felt like he was doing something wrong. So then he kind of starts to scurry off. And I was like, well, I was had a little bit, just enough gumption, you know, I was like, and I knew the guy. So I was like, you know what? I'm not standing for it. So I just climbed down my tree stand quick and I followed him. Well, I knew where he was going. And he was probably like 50, 60 yards in front of me, but I just kept following him, followed him. I think he thought I was going to try to beat him up or something. Finally, I just like yelled because it was like, we were ruining the whole day anyway. I was like, hey, just stop. So finally he stops. I was like, I got up to him, I was like, what are you doing? You know, I was like, you're out here like late October, like walking right before dark. Like, it's fine. Did you shoot a deer? Like, what's going on? Like, why are you trying to run? Well, no reason, da 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 da. And I'm just like,
Felt stupid.
Yeah. And I was like, well, dude, I mean, you know, I have permission to be on this side here. This is public land, you know? Yeah, I know. I was like, well, do you need something? Is everything okay? No, everything's fine. And I was like, well, did you shoot a deer? And he's like, no. And he was just out there just marching around. And it's just like, dude, what are you doing? And so I ended up, that piece, the officer in the air, I called him and said, hey, man, is there anything like, is that okay? I mean, you're just walking around at like right before dark. He's like, oh, he can do what he wants.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, I was just like,
Yeah, because he didn't have a weapon or anything, did he?
no, he didn't have, and I didn't want him to think I was trying to shoot him. So I just left my bow at the tree.
Yeah.
And then after we talked, he went a separate way. And then I marched myself back to my tree stand, climbed up, grabbed all my stuff and then left. But yeah, he was out there just like snooping around.
What the heck?
It's like, God, dude, that just seems kind of odd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah. Or having guys put brush piles on fence lines. I've had that a lot. They'll just like where deer come off a piece of private onto public and they'll stack brush on the private side fence to try to block the trails. Like a deer just won't go around. but you know, if you can divide a deer off and then all of a sudden that trail here goes 50 yards this way and maybe that saves him, right? So
Sure.
I've had that a lot where they'll just stack brush. And then sometimes they stack it on the public side, so then you just move it. But yeah, I've had that a lot. Stack brush to high trails, and you're just like, why, dude, you got to be that guy?
Don't be that guy.
Don't be that guy. Oh. Okay, so now we've discussed a lot about about the guy not to be. But I think a really good example of the guy to be is, and he's been a great example for me of just being really good about it, is my buddy Chris Davidson. My buddy Chris Davidson feels like the most non-materialistic person I've ever met. He would about give you his shirt off his back. You know, he's got spots that he's put years and years into, and he'll just let me go hunt them. You know what I mean? Yeah, go hunt them, you know? And he has little things like, oh, I'd rather you not shoot does right now. It's kind of the peak of the rut or whatever, because I'm a brown, it's down type guy. And I'd rather you not shoot does. Yeah, no problem. That's fine. But I feel like that's been a breath of fresh air for me to see how he's just so open. He's like, man, it's just deer hunting, man.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't life or death. I feel like he has a very good perspective on that. I think that's really helped me. Because like I said earlier, sometimes what I get all butthurt about is when the next guy goes ask permission.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
And then you're like, well, gosh, I don't want another guy out here. But I was that guy at one point too on that piece of property. And so it's like, I feel like I've tried to be more like Chris in the fact of being like, hey, just like I've run into guys and I'm like, hey man, how you doing? My name's Cole. You know, try to have a nice tone. Try not to be all growly. I feel like if I put my sunglasses on and I put a scowl, my wife's like, you are scary. I'm like, man, I don't feel like I'm scary. She's like, you have a beard and dark sunglasses and a really ratty hat. You look scary. I'm like, oh, okay. So just like try to be nice.
Yeah.
Hey man, this is where I have my stand set, you know?
You got to remember that if they're out hunting, they're out there to enjoy it, right?
Yeah.
And so are you. So if everybody just realizes that and doesn't just try to hoard spots and like you said, claim the deer for themselves.
Yeah.
They can't. You can't do that. But it would all work a lot better. I mean, it'd save a lot of friendships, a lot of hard feelings with people you don't know.
I mean, that's why I don't like him anymore. I mean, it's mostly your face, but what he said too. I'm just kidding. No, I think that's good.
Yay.
Yeah, no, dude. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's 100% hitting the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Well, I think we should wrap it up. one thing I also want to say is, Zip, I do really appreciate you coming.
Oh, I really appreciate you guys inviting me. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah. And like I said, I think the cool thing is these types of conversations, we're just trying to give more perspective.
Yeah.
And again, like the disclaimer I always say, this is just our opinion. It's not like this is the law.
Yep.
Take it for what it's worth. There's a lot of other discussion points and perspectives and ways of looking at it. This is just some of it.
Yeah.
You know. So, but yeah, like I said, Zip, thanks a ton for being here. I really appreciate
Thank you.
you. It's awesome been getting to know you. And my wife texted me and asked me if I was eating supper, and I had to tell her no. I actually told her last night. I said, "Hey, honey, I don't if it's okay. I've got a work supper tomorrow night." And she's like, "Oh, you do?" And I was like, "Yeah, there's this guy coming down from Wisconsin. We're doing some podcast episodes, and if it's okay, I mean, it's gonna be a drag, but I got to take him out for supper."
Yeah,
And
she's
like, okay, all right. I was like, it won't be too late. I mean, we can still watch The Witcher when I get home. I'll give you a back rub. But I'm gonna probably have to come clean and just tell him it's Zip.
Yeah. It's just Uncle Zip.
if you tell her afterwards, there's nothing she can do about it.
Yeah. I've learned though, bring back ice cream or her favorite
Sure.
drink or something like that,
Yeah.
and then it usually smooths it over.
Yeah.
Yep.
But all right, guys, thanks again. Ozonics Killerwinds podcast, another episode of the book. I'm Cole Tanner.
I'm Nick Simon.
Thanks for Zip for being here.
Yep. Thank you.
And moral of the story:
Don't be
don't be that guy.